Today is the day that we brew our Isle malt or Imperial stout, and we're following a recipe from Brewdog. They have a book online, or it's a PDF file. There's hundreds of beer recipes, and the one that we came across was Imperial stout, and we've got all the ingredients, or the ones that we could find, so all the grain, and then we've got oatmeal, kaurahiutale I think it's named. And we'll start off by measuring 20 litres of water. We'll use, because the recipe doesn't talk about sparging and stuff like that, so what we'll do is we'll boil it at, or mash it at 20 litres or so, and then we'll, sparge it with 5, and that should bring us fairly close to, we're aiming at the end volume of 20 litres, so we lose 5 during this mashing and sparging and boiling, so those take up 5 litres. So let's get on with it. So the first thing we do is we switch on the brew monk and set the temperature to heating 67, and it'll take about 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, and then we'll continue. So now we've reached our target temperature, which is 65 according to the recipe, and we mash it for 90 minutes. What we need to do for that is we need to install the inner bit, drop this one in. So here we have a cork for it. So this stops the grains from going into that pipe. The only thing you need to pay attention here is that everything gets wet, so you don't have any big lumps, and then the rest of the grain. So now I want some water on top, so it becomes easier for me to mix them. I'll start the pump. So I attached this bit here just to get some water moving, and then I have a pump here that now I just need to mix them up and make sure that everything is wet. To my understanding, this is the maximum amount of grain that can be used with this brew monk, or sorry, there is a bigger version of brew monk. 90 minutes mashing time. And then we put the pump on, and basically we've aimed it so that if you look at the so that the water level rises up to about here, but it doesn't actually start going through the overflow. But now it's 90 minutes of mashing. So now follow the recipe. We can see that it says Columbus 75 grams start, Columbus 25 grams middle, sauce 25 grams end, and first gold 25 at the end. So I've got the hops here, so that's Columbus, this is sauce, and this is first gold. So what we do is we open it nicely, and then we measure 25 grams, and that's 25. And then I have hop socks. This is the one that goes in the middle. Now I create another hop sock that goes in the start. This is 75 grams. Let's check if I've got, well, this with the plastic bag it says 78. Maybe there's a bit too much. in it goes, and this goes in the middle. Oh, sorry, no, this one at the start, and then the rest two we can put in the same sock. So that's first gold and finally SARS. Okay, now the mashing time is up. We've been doing it for 90 minutes. It's the longest we've ever done. I think the previous brews it's been 60 minutes tops. Now you can see how it goes. So it brings the wort through this pipe and then it flushes through the grain. Now we'll switch off the pump. Now comes the interesting bit. Will I be able to lift it up? We've always had maybe two people doing this. So now it's lifted up, and as you can hear, sparging through the grain. The recipe doesn't talk about sparging water specifically, but I've put only about 20 some litres in there by beginning, or we started off by 20 or so litres. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sparge it with, let's say, 3-4 litres. And the sparging water temperature is 77. So it's slightly hotter than the mashing temperature, which is 65. I want to test what the gravity of the wort is at this stage. So I'm going to pour out some to test what is the gravity that we have. As you can see, it's dark as anything. Imperial stout for you. But this is now warm. I need to cool it down to room temperature, and then I'll take the gravity. But before that, I can start sparging. Okay. Basically, it's reading. It's 1060 at the moment. Then if this is still warm, it will increase, so it's 1070. But I think the recipe gravity, it was mentioned at it was 190 that they're estimating. We're off by 20 points. Well, clearly it's the strongest that we've ever made. It's not all that it's trumped up to be. So while the sparge is going, you can hear it dripping. What I'm going to do, because previously I think we waited until the sparge was ended, and only then did we turn the boil on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start increasing the temperature of the wort so that when I take the sparge thing off, I'm good to go, I'm golden. So now it's set to boil. Any more water, and here I'll start disassembling this. This is the top plate for the grains. So now, as you can hear, the sparge is done. There's no more dripping, and the brew monk has been set to boil. It is already 90 some degrees, and I shall take the grain away. Now, when it gets to boiling, then I'll add the first hops into the beer. Then, set a timer so that I put something in the middle. So it's 30 minutes, and then I'll put stuff in for the last 5 minutes. Sorry, 5 minutes. Original volume, and if we look at it before the boil, we only have 20 litres of stuff. So this is going to be a smaller batch. And the gravity, if we look at this, now it's basically cooled down to room temperature. If we look at it, the gravity is maybe 7, well basically the gravity is 72. So maybe the gravity will grow when we boil it, but I'm not holding my breath. Or it will grow, but the amount of liquid will diminish. A boil has started, and we noticed that with full power it boils over to 2500 watts, so we're doing it at 1700 watts, and that seems to keep the boil down, but I need to monitor it for a while. So here goes the first hop additions. Columbus, 75 grams. So now the boil is ongoing. We've been boiling about 20 minutes, and this is what happens to us always, is that the foam, it builds up and some comes out. This time it has been very gentle what comes out, but that's why you need to point this hole to a direction that is towards a floor or something like that. I think we made a mess of the surroundings here earlier when it was squirting towards the bench and not onto the floor. So all the spent grain that has been sparged, I use a sack that they deliver these, or then you can use a standard plastic bag, and it fits over this rim, and then I toss these. If I would have pigs, I would feed this to them. Now that the boil is halfway through, we need to disinfect all our fermentation containers, and that happens by, we have bottles of ready-made star sand, and we will use that. Swirl it around so everything, and then we take the lid that we're going to use and we disinfect that also. Now we're at the halfway point in the boil, and 25 grams of hops goes in. Ooh, that's hot. Now that the liquid amount is reduced, I'm actually boiling it at 1400 watts, and it still seems to be boiling fairly vigorously, or maybe I could drop it even lower. So that's it. It's 55 minutes into the boil. What we do now, if I can get this off, is we add the last hop sock. This is for flavouring primarily, and we add the cooling device. And the idea of this is when it boils, it gets disinfected. That's the boil at the end, and what we'll do is we're going to start the cooler, and that is, we've got this very sophisticated gardening system. So basically what happens, the water goes through this green hole and it goes all the way into this cooler here, and the cooler, it's the coil in the wort, and then what do you call it, we can monitor. It was 100 degrees, and you can see the first steps. It's absolutely massively fast. The cooling system is very efficient. It only took about 5 minutes, and here we are at 31. We're ready to move the wort into the fermentation tank. I'll switch off the cooling now. That's the cooling system out, and we're right around 30 degrees. Now I'll start pouring it out into the fermentation tank. And here we go, into the fermentation tank. At the same time, we have the starter here, and as you can see, there's a proper, what do you call it, yeast cake at the bottom. We won't be putting all of this in, so we're just gonna put maybe half of it here. So I'll pour this away, the top part of this, and then we mix it properly so that we get all the yeast. Oh, the smell is quite strong. And then into the beer. We're right around 30 degrees. And as you can see, the wort, it's tremendously dark. So now, on with the sanitized lid, and we'll carry it in place, and then we'll put the airlock on, so we don't want to carry the liquid while the airlock is on. Oh, that should be all tight. And if we look at it from here, we can see that we have wort about 18.5 litres. Wasn't 20 as
we were expecting, but that's good enough for us. So now comes the interesting part. We measure what is the final gravity that we got after the boil. We're hoping 190, but I'm estimating 180, 185, something like that. But let's have a look. So I got approximately 80 mils. It's only 1075, so we're 15 off the target. Or maybe it's closer to 180, but still. I'll leave it there to sit for a minute so I can see what the end result is, but it's maybe not as good as we hoped for. Here's the final resting place, or not the final resting place, but where the beer shall be fermenting. It's the coldest place in our apartment, and the reason is that the door or the wall is open to the elements. It's 18-19 litres. Actually, the reading, if we took it over there, it might be wrong because the floor is a bit at an angle. So here it's more accurate. So 19 litres, and the gravity was 1080. So it might be a strong brew. Now I'm going to get the airlock and attach it. So here's the airlock. I filled it with star sand.